Alright, we're going to start off with a nice, quiet little story here before we get into this video when I relax and eat my muffin. We're going to talk about Les Paul 101. So before I can talk about what a great guitar this Adam Jones is, especially compared to other Les Pauls, we need to do a little history lesson here. Now, if you already know everything there is to know about Les Pauls, and you don't need to listen to my fat ass, just fast forward. But if you take a moment, you might actually learn something. So, who is Les Paul that these guitars are named after? Les Paul got his name as a session player, I believe in the late 40s, early 50s, and he married a woman that he was performing with in live shows. And not only was Les a great guitar player, but he was also an inventor. So when people compare him to Leo Fender was an inventor, but he was not a player. He did not have chops. Les Paul had some badass chops. So Les invented one of the first electric guitars that he called the Log, and then working with, I think it was McCarthy, the head of Gibson at the time. McCarthy's super famous for, in one year, coming out with the Les Paul, the Flying V, and the Explorer, as well as the 335, right? So we're talking about a guy who had just incredible vision. So although Les Paul's name is on the headstock of all these guitars we're going to see, all five of them, 4 Epiphone and 1 Gibson, as we look at the Adam Jones, he did not technically invent them. He helped participate in their design, and then his name wound up on the headstock, and he endorsed them ever since. Up to and including the SG, which Tony Iommi is famous for using, as well as many other people, and that was called the Les Paul II. Les did not like that design, had his name taken off the SG, and that's how it became the SG instead of the Les Paul II, which was out for only 1 year. And Les is like, nope, take my name off this thing. That's now known as the SG, Special Gibson. Oh, I've been busting my ass all muffin. This morning is worth it. Busting my ass all morning. This muffin is my reward. Okay, so when we look at the Les Paul, historically, there have been many different models over the years, but there's really been 3 that have stayed around. There's specials here and there, like this one I'm going to show you, but let's just talk about the basics. The Les Paul Standard, kind of the aspirational guitar that's been around forever. It's what I and so many other people wanted as a little kid. And this thing's got all the components that you would expect a Les Paul to have. 2 humbuckers, separate volume and tone controls, a set neck. Now this is very important. It does not have a bolt-on neck like Fenders do. What happens is they actually cut into the body of the guitar, and there's what's called a short tendon. Think of how cabinets and furniture used to be made with dowel and mortar. So what does that mean? Cabinets and guitars back in the day used to be made by not just slapping them together as quickly as possible with screws. You would actually carve out the receiver. I know this because I worked at a cabinet factory my first year in college to make some extra money. And then there would be a dowel that would be inserted, and the other thing would be carved out. Then they would be glued together, and there would be 2 nails on either side that would just hold the cabinet frame in place until the glue dried. Because once the glue dried, the wood glue is harder than the actual wood. So same thing here on the Les Paul. What's happening is, in the factory, this is hand fitted and glued, and this is a short tendon or short dowel that just barely fits in there. Then once this is dried, it's good to go. you tend to get better sustain, and you guys won't be able to feel this, but when I hit this D chord, I can feel it vibrate throughout the entire guitar, all the way to the headstock. Not just a little bit, but a lot. And that's because of this design. It makes the Les Paul's mahogany body essentially one piece, and then there's a maple cap. Now on the standard, they're known for having, if you get a Gibson, 2 actual full pieces of maple that are put on there, and then the price of the guitar goes up, not because of the components, but just because of the quality of the top. They go anywhere from what's called AA, which this would be equivalent to, but this is a veneer. It's not actual 2 pieces of maple, up to quadruple A, and you can wind up paying thousands of dollars extra just because of the wood top, which I think is nuts. I'm more of a feature guy. But this is the Gibson Inspired 1960. So this is Epiphone saying, okay, instead of calling this a Plus Top Pro, because we don't want a user to be able to compare straight from Gibson to Epiphone and see that the Epiphone is $1,000 cheaper, they said, no, we're going to own this. This is a 60 spec. It's as close as you can get to buying a Gibson standard 1960s spec without spending a couple of $1,000. This was $649. I got this from Sweetwater, and I will never purchase from Sweetwater again because they did not do the 24-point inspection. Why is that important? I took this in to get a setup at my local shop, and I was telling him I was having some dead action down here. He looked at it for 30 seconds and he's like, "You've got neck swell." I'm like, "What the hell is neck swell?" And he's like, "Look, you know, the nice thing about the hand work and the set neck is that you get that sustain, but on the short tendons, there's a small percentage of them that over time get moisture in there because that little tiny nub doesn't go far enough into the body. Water builds up and it actually starts to swell." So he's like, the reason that you're getting this dead frets here is because of the neck swell, not because of the action. He's like, you can move this around all day and you're still going to have that. So there were 2 possible solutions. Completely cut off the neck, reroute the body, and order a replacement neck and install it. That work would have been 3 times what the guitar cost, or file down the frets, which is exactly what he did. He filed these frets down. So here you have a $649 guitar, considered to be, by anybody, you know, watch Anderton's TV or any of the big guys, that this is one of the best Les Pauls from Epiphone that you can buy, and about as close to a Gibson as you can get, and it suffered from neck swell. All right, putting the muffin down, putting on my cool t-shirt so I look like a rocker. And I'm going to rotate these guitars out on their stands. So we're going to take the 60 spec. We're going to grab the Adam Jones. Now here's where it gets interesting. Oh God, it's so much heavier. The Adam Jones isn't just a Les Paul custom, going back to what I started and never finished, the 3 models that are typically around forever. The Les Paul Studio doesn't have all the bling like the 60s I just showed you. The Les Paul Standard, and the top of the line is the Les Paul Custom. Now the other thing that makes the Adam Jones unique is this is a reproduction of his favorite guitar he's been touring with for years, which is a 1970s Gibson Custom. So the guitar I showed you before was a 60s spec. This is a 70s spec. Now what's going on here? Less bling, right? We don't have the top hat knobs. We don't have Grover tuners. We have a different tuner, but these are really great. You know, obviously this is a custom piece of artwork on the back because it's Adam Jones, but just looking at this as a 70s custom, what's different is 70s spec has a different neck. Les Paul Custom has an ebony fretboard, not a rosewood or today Indian laurel fretboard. 70s spec has slightly thinner fret wire, which makes a huge difference. I don't know why, but these frets, if you hold the two guitars next to each other, are much thinner than the frets on the 60s spec. And this has the long tendon, right? So let's talk a little bit about that again. So I mentioned, and knowing this from having worked on a cabinet factory and making cabinet frames for 8-10 hours a day during the summer, when you mortise or you drill that piece of wood, it goes so deep, and in a cabinet perspective, you put in a dowel, you drill the other side, you put them together, and you put the wood glue in there and two staples. Staples just hold it in place until the wood glue is solid and cured, and it's as hard as wood at that point. So looking at a Les Paul with that short tendon neck doesn't meet the body cavity all the way, so there can be a gap where moisture gets in and can cause that neck swell. The long tendon, they drill, I think it's at least 25% deeper into the body, and then that dowel, which is essentially the butt end of the neck, is also 25% longer. So it gets better connection to the body, and then I'm told that the long tendons don't get the neck swell because there's no little gap in there that will collect water over time and allow it to swell. It's in there deep. So before I plug it in, I'll just strum it by hand like I did the other one. It's louder, and I think that long tendon neck might have something to do with it. Okay, so that's why a 70s spec custom is different than a 60s standard. Let's talk a little bit about what makes this even different or more different than another Les Paul. So anybody who's watched my videos, which is a small percentage of you, most of you are discovering me through streams for the first time or through shorts, I always prefer the sound of the neck pickup. Typically, I don't like the sound of the bridge pickup because it's so close to the termination point here on the bridge. So it's louder, I mean it's higher in pitch, just like if you were to take a pick at the bridge, you kind of get that effect closer to the adjustable bridge. It's a little too trebly for me. Now typically also on Gibsons, and especially higher end ones, like my 115th anniversary Gibson Les Paul, it's got an overwound 490 in the bridge position. So not only is it loud and hot, it also is more trebly, and the combination is just way too much. So typically what I do is I turn down the neck and I play more with the bridge pickup. So two interesting things going on here. They've replaced the original Epiphone or Gibson PAF with a Seymour Duncan, because that's one change Adam Jones made, and also flipped the position of the normal stock pickup, so it's reversed. So this is like my fantasy wet dream come true. When I want to use this pickup, it's completely over the top, but the neck pickup on this thing is already louder than normal. So I've got this turned to 3, I've got this all the way up at 10, and the other thing that that allows you to do, and a friend of mine taught me this, John Nicholas, thank you very much, on any Gibson or Gibson copy that's got the 2 volume controls, when you turn one of the pickups on or off and you have a good switch that's not real loud, you can do this and it will act like a volume control and also a kill switch. Hendrix did the same thing in a lot of his songs like Voodoo Child. You hear that womp, 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 womp. That's because he's using the toggle switch, and in certain positions on the old Fenders, in between, right, there's no connection. So when he's going womp, 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 he doesn't have a foot switch that he's using as a kill switch. It's when he's in between positions, there's no connection. So the sound literally cuts off. I'm going to very carefully move my new beloved Adam Jones over to this position. Notice that these guitar stands have a little latch there. That's because when I was a kid, I had a 72 Telecaster thin line that I knocked off the stand and it chipped the finish. So I never get a stand now unless it's got that gate on it. Okay. Can't mostly see my pants, so I'll use those as a napkin. Using my orange FS1, the best, baddest ass, most deadly foot switch ever created. Works perfect on the Marshall. You could use that thing to defend yourself. And for the first time, let's hear this. I have not heard this guitar yet. I've only played it acoustically. Okay, now since this is a nice expensive guitar, I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to get a strap so it doesn't slide off because I'm wearing shorts or sweats. All right, I don't know where my coal saw. There it is. It's right behind me. Aha! Aha! Give me a pillow too. I'm a little fat guy. So another difference you'll notice from a typical Gibson or Epiphone custom is the strap locks on this bad boy. They are these diamonds. All right. I don't want to harm the beautiful artwork of the Hive of Bees, so I'm wearing sweats. So there are no belts that are going to break into this finish and this artwork, and there's not even the what do you call them? The little metally stabby pieces that are on jeans. I forgot what they call those. I'll think of it later when it doesn't matter. Okay, so again, as I explained, I'll start with it all the way down. Bridge position, the hottest pickup, I have turned all the way down. I'm just going to turn it up until I get a little zonked, because that's how I like it. Louder it is because I've got the neck on 10. So I go from, don't focus on my bad playing or the out of tuneness. We'll fix those in a minute when I warm up. And here's the kill switch effect. Okay, so let's tune. Now, if you're gigging out or with friends, don't have it on 10 when you're tuning and warming up, because that's just dick work. Have it turned down, which is another reason to use this even if you reverse the pickup layout. So you'll notice when I have this tuned half step down, because I believe that's what Adam Jones and Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains, all the guys do, because not only does it make it deeper, but it's shocking when you compare it to a guitar that's in standard, how much tension is relieved in the strings. So you can actually really rip much better when you've taken a half step out of the equation. It reduces the amount of weight considerably on the guitar. Okay, so let's get serious. I've been babbling for a while on my other camera doing a history of the Les Paul, but let's hit some of the highlights on why this is so great. Okay, it is a Les Paul Custom, which means it's the highest range of the Les Pauls. There's typically a Les Paul Studio, which has no bling, but still has all the components you need. Then there's a Les Paul Standard, which I showed earlier on the other camera. A little more blingier, typically has a thinner neck, and typically are built to what's called the 60s spec. Since this is Adam Jones's reproduction, he's known for playing a 70s Les Paul Custom. So not only is this a Les Paul Custom, so it's at the highest range of the Les Paul line, it's designed to a 70s spec. So what does that mean? Long tendon neck, which means that the stick at the end of the neck, the butt, goes deeper into the body than most other set necks, which have a short tendon neck. And I went on the other camera on some reasons why that's better. The frets are super tiny. I'm not talking about the height, I'm talking about the width. So it has a very strange effect when playing. When I compared it to the Standard and then also my Alex Lifeson Epiphone, the Standard's fret wires are much wider. These are closer to the Lifeson, but it still plays better. And I'm thinking part of that is the ebony fretboard. So what does the Custom have that a Standard doesn't? Ebony fretboard, binding, 7-ply. That's basically a super nice border on the body of the guitar that's put in by hand and then has to dry for days. And it's got a binding on the back, and of course this lovely lady, because it's the Adam Jones Mark Ryden artwork on the back. So again, I'm not wearing no frickin' belt and I'm wearing sweats. The other thing that's nice here too is this is from the 70s, this flute neck here. What that does is, you know, if you're just playing cowboy chords all day, it's designed to be more comfortable. I'm gonna turn the neck down because it's a little too loud. Okay, so if I just bang away like some, let me warm up first. Okay, so if you're just banging away cowboy chords, and I'll do an Alice in Chains song. Having some tuning issues, but the point there is it is way more comfortable. Because of that neck flute, it makes it way more comfortable for you to play the cowboy chords, the open chords. Another reason I appreciate that, this is going to go in and out of tune because it just got shipped from God knows where. A lot of my originals use the cowboy chords, pretty complicated ones, so I'll play a bit of one of my originals so you get an idea. So I really appreciate how this is more comfortable. Cowboy chords, super easy. Now in general, this neck is thicker than that 60s I showed you because it had the slim taper, but this is not a standard neck, okay? Because it's the the Adam Jones, Mark is the artist, because this is the Adam Jones guitar, this is set up more like an Ibanez Wizard neck. It's 3-piece maple instead of 1-piece mahogany, which the Standard has. So I don't know, there's just something about that Wizard neck design, the 3-piece maple, that it's... just fast and fun. All right, so let's put in some gain here. I'm just going to jam a little bit and then maybe play some songs you recognize. Now let's maybe play something familiar. Alright, I don't know a lot of Tool songs, even though I'm a fan. I typically just listen. So let's play some stuff you guys might recognize. Alright, you might recognize some of this. Let's get this in more volume. One, two, three, four. Okay, let's bring this back up to standard D flat. And these tuners, like people online, including me, are like, oh my god, they're not Grovers, they're gonna suck. They're amazing. They do not suck at all. Okay, let's take another moment to talk about why this guitar is way better than any other Les Paul I've had. Gibson, I have one now, but I've had at least 3 or 4 that I've bought and sold. Probably 10 different Epiphone models. If you look at the box, and I'll get a photo of this if I can remember, it's got the Gibson USA Nashville sticker on it. So I believe, even though it's got the QA sticker on back for China, I take that to mean that these are shipped to the Gibson factory in Tennessee, because it's got their logo on the box for the final inspection and setup. Because I have never had, again, that standard I bought from Sweetwater was supposed to have the 24-point inspection and then the setup. They didn't do it, and it had neck swell, and I didn't know until I took it in to get the strings changed, and somebody's like, dude, you got issues. So the setup on this thing is amazing. All right, so let's play some other songs you might recognize. I like some Social D, so. Take away this ball and chain. All right, let's do some Alice in Chains. Let's really turn up the gain on this one. Oh. Okay, gonna check the tuning one last time. Is it, you got that pretty good? And I'm known for being a big Rush fan. That's why I bought the Alex Lifeson. So let's see how this does with a Rush string. Okay, I've been Martin Bryan. This has been the Adam Jones Les Paul Custom, and I have to give her a nice wood down, but for now, got some editing to do. Hope you guys like it.